Hi, everybody. My name is Sarah, and welcome to Parli Judge Training. By the time you're done watching this video, you're going to have absolutely all the knowledge you need to know about how to judge a round of Parli debate or parliamentary debate for the NYC UDL. So I'm going to go over all the technical aspects of judging the round, bringing up your ballot in Tabroom, filling out your ballot, sending it to us. I'm going to talk about what you should be basing your decision on, how to adjudicate the round. And I'm also just going to be talking about what does a Parli round look like? What is the format of the round? What are the different times of the speeches? So you'll know what you're watching and how to judge it. So by the end, you should have all that information. Now, first things first, I want to start off by giving a huge thank you to you for being here and for you doing this. We have so many tournaments each year and so many debaters, and we simply can't do them without the help of incredible volunteers like you who said yes to your coach, who said yes to the volunteer coordinator, who said yes to someone to offer your time to be here today for our students. And we're so incredibly grateful. So thank you so much for that. So I'm going to throw a lot of information at you right now, but if you only can retain one thing, we want you to think about your main goal for the day to be make the students want to debate again. So as the judge, you are the adult in the room. You are the person who's facilitating the round, helping them keep time, giving feedback. So you have a great chance to make a big impact on how they feel about how the day went. They've spent time preparing with their coach, but now this is the time where they're actually trying the activity. And we want them to like the activity. Debate has so many amazing impacts, and they're not going to experience those impacts unless they come back and debate again and again and again. It takes on average 15 rounds of debate to reap the benefits. So please be an encouraging presence, be a warm presence. You don't have to know everything about debate to make the children in the room feel welcomed and feel listened to. So that's the main goal for the day. Please keep your camera on, greet the debaters as they enter your Zoom room, ask them their names and pronouns. We're going to talk about lots of different ways to make the room feel good, but that really is the main goal for the day. Yes. So essential practices, making the room feel good along those notes. We'll be sending you this NSDA implicit bias pamphlet. We all have implicit biases. There are students who are going to more appeal to you because of beliefs you have or the experiences you've had in your life. The things they say in their debates might appeal to you more because of implicit biases you have. So we ask you to not make decisions based on those, even though it's hard. So read through this pamphlet so you can learn a little bit more about that. And then other main practices, keep your camera on, please, and give good positive feedback that makes them want to come back. Those are really the two main ones. And don't decide the round based on your personal opinions about the topic they're debating. Please decide the round based on the arguments and the work that you see and not about how you feel. For example, if they're debating whether or not it's ethical to eat meat, you may be a vegetarian and have a very strong opinion about that. Why wouldn't you? But we really ask you to leave your personal beliefs at the door when you're listening to the debate. Judge it based on the arguments. So those are some things about implicit bias. All right, let's get into the nitty-gritty. There are 8 steps for judging the debate that you're going to watch, and I'm going to take you through them one by one. Step 1 is simple. We're going to open 2 tabs on our computer. These 2 tabs are going to be important for you the entire time you're judging, so we ask you to keep those open the whole time. One tab, you're going to type in tabroom.com. Tabroom.com is your home base for getting your ballot, filling out your ballot, and sending your ballot to us. So tabroom.com is where you get your ballot. The other window is going to be tournaments.debate.nyc. And that's where you're going to access the judge lounge that you'll come to in the morning. And that's also where you're going to access all the various Zoom rooms that you might be judging in. So you can see on the right side of my screen, you see Auditorium Help Desk Judge Lounge. Underneath that, you'll be scrolling and there'll be hundreds of rooms. And you'll choose the one that corresponds to the room that you're judging in. And I'm going to talk about how to know that. But those are your 2 tabs for the day. Next. Step 2, we're going to get our room assignments. Now, hopefully, if you have an account in Tabroom, you're going to get an email and a text When we release that information, your text will look like what's on the right side of my screen. You see on the prop side, Salk School of Science, you see the 3 debaters' names, versus on the op side, the school Q300, and you see those 3 debaters' names. You see your name because you're judging at the start time of the round. And then where it says room par 227, that's exactly what I was just talking about. That's your room assignment. So when you see that in your text and email, that's how you know when you go to tournaments.debate.nyc what room to scroll to look for. You'd be looking for par 227. As opposed to D7102, D7103, the rooms you see there now. Okay, so I say don't wait for a text or email. There's no reason to. You can just log right on to the left side, tabroom.com, and see if you have a ballot. And let me show you how to do that. Here's how you get your ballot in Tabroom. The first thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to want to make sure we're logged in. If you see on my screen where it says log out profile lilablack@gmail.com, since it says log out, we know that Lila is logged in. If it said log in, you would need to do that first. Click log in, enter your Tabroom email and password, and then you're in. And once you're in, the only step that's really, really important for you to remember is that the way you find your ballot is by clicking on your email address. So let's watch this video. You see her cursor clicks on her email address. As soon as she does, voila, the ballot pops up. So when you get your text or email, go to tabroom.com, log in, click your email address, and voila. And once you hit start round, you'll see all the places that come up where you enter the information. But don't hit start round yet. Let's talk about that. You have your assignment, you brought up your ballot. Step 3, you found your room, you went to your room. We're not going to hit the start round button until everybody is in the room who's supposed to be in the room. How do you know who's supposed to be in the room? It's listed on the ballot. It's also listed in your email and text assignments. So as the debaters enter the Zoom room, this is a great chance for you to start creating the warm environment I was talking about. Hi, I'm Judge Wellborn. I'm going to be watching the debate today. I'm so excited for it. Let me get organized on my end. What are your names? What are your pronouns that you like to use? What school are you from? Are you on the prop or the op side? And are you speaker 1, 2, or 3? In Parli, they debate on teams of 3. You might have a team of just 2 where one speaker is going to do 2 speeches. They can tell you that. You'll see that on your ballot too. But ask them so that you can get organized. As they introduce themselves, I really recommend having a piece of paper, old school, next to you and sort of making yourself a little chart like this, where you can write that this is the prop side, this is the op side, and then have them just fill in their names as they say. I'm speaker 1 on the prop, fill them in here. I'm speaker 2 on the prop, fill them in here, just like that. And then while they're making their speech, you have their little square for you to make comments on. So that's just what I recommend. Great. So once they're all in the room, you've done it. They're all here. It's time to click the green start round button, which you saw in that video earlier. And there's a picture of it again here. Everybody's here. You're ready to start the round. You're going to click start round. Now, that's not a magical thing that makes anything start happening in the room. But what it does do is it tells everybody on the back end of the tournament, this room is good to go. We have a screen where we're looking at hundreds of Zoom rooms at once from the back end. And when you hit start round, it sends a signal to us. All the debaters are there. The judge is there. That debate is getting ready to get started. Okay. So if you don't hit start round, it's okay. But what's going to happen is somebody from our admin side of the tournament is going to pop into your Zoom room and ask what's going on, if there's anything they can do to help. Okay. So just so you know, that's why it's important to hit the start round button. Okay, great. Now we're at step 5, which is the fun step, watching the debate round. I'm going to tell you how the format of a Parli round looks right now, and I'm going to let you know everything you're about to see. So the main things to know just right off the bat, keep your camera on while they're talking. They don't have to keep their camera on. For some students, the internet is just stronger in their apartments if they have their camera off. So we do allow that. There also might be distracting things going on in their background that they can't control. So we do allow them to have cameras off. We hope they have them on because that's nicer for you. But please, for you, please keep your camera on and mute yourself while they're speaking. You shouldn't be speaking at all during the round, other than to come off mute to tell them that their time is up for their speech. We'll talk about that in a second. But that's the only time that you should need to speak to in the round, unless, of course, there's something going on where a student can't be heard, isn't speaking loud enough, they've accidentally muted themselves. Of course, feel free to come off mute to tell them, hey, just so you know, we can't hear you right now. Obviously, feel free to come off to troubleshoot, but you shouldn't need to contribute to the round other than that. Definitely take notes. Try to take notes while you're watching, especially on their arguments. By the end, the whole thing is going to feel like a blur. So it's really important for you, because you're going to need to give some feedback if you take notes on things you heard. So the first speaker is going to introduce arguments. I try to write every single argument down that they say, or just the key words, so that I can remember, hey, your first argument was this. I really understood it. It was well supported. Good job. So take notes during the round, really important. Okay, now for the fun part. What is this round going to look like? So like I mentioned before, we have two sides in a Parli debate, the prop and the op. The prop supports the motion, the op goes against the motion. Here are some examples of old motions we've had. This House believes the government should have the right to spy on its citizens. So prop side thinks the government should have that right. Op side is going to be arguing that they shouldn't. All right. Here's the basic round structure. The topics are announced to the children at the time that you were getting your text about where your room assignment was. So at that moment, the students have 20 minutes to quickly get organized with their teammates about going into the debate. Do not worry about that prep time. That happens outside of the Zoom with you. So when they get to your Zoom, they've already done their prep time. So don't worry about that. Here's what you do need to worry about: the 6 speeches that you're going to hear during the round. So 3 speakers on each team, 6 speeches total. We always start with the prop. First speaker prop has 5 minutes. Then we go to the op. First speaker op has 5 minutes. Then we return to the prop. Prop speaker 2 has 5 minutes. Back to the op. Op speaker 2 has 5 minutes. Now, here's the part where it gets weird. Wouldn't you think back to the prop and with the op? But no. In fact, after op speaker 2, we stay with the op. We hear the final speech from the op. It's a 4-minute speech, and then we end on the prop. So 4-minute speech for the prop. So 5, 5, 5, 5, 4, 4. So if it helps you to remember, prop begins and ends the debate. That's the advantage of being on the prop. The advantage of being on the op is that because they have 2 speakers in a row, they essentially have 9-minute block to speak to you. So those are the advantages of each. Okay, so there's the basic structure. I really do recommend getting the NYC UDL debate timer app. It looks like this. You will choose parliamentary from the top, and then it actually just tells you first speaker, second speaker, third speaker. So when it's time for the first speaker on the proposition, you'll just hit this button here. It tells you it's a 5-minute speech. You don't need to remember. As soon as they start speaking, you hit the start button and it's going to start ticking away for you. So how easy is that? So definitely I recommend getting this New York City Urban Debate League timer app. It's called NYC UDL Debate Timer, and it's in the Apple Store, and also it's available for Android in the Google Play Store. All right, little commercial. Let's talk about what each speaker is going to be doing. Okay, so we're starting, like I said, first speaker prop. This speaker is going to define anything that you might need to know. Debater, you as a judge don't need to know anything about the topic before coming in. It's the student's job to define everything that they're going to be talking about. And the first speaker is going to kick that off. So first speaker on the proposition is going to define terms for you, and they're going to make 3 arguments. So we asked them to try to come up with 3 arguments. It's the job of the first speaker to lay those out for you. Really take notes at this time. It's a great time to get organized and write down their 3 arguments. Then we go to the opposition. They're going to do the exact same thing. They're going to agree or disagree with the definitions created by the first speaker on the prop. And then you're going to hear their team's arguments. Also, one more step from the first speaker of the op, they're going to make some refutations about the arguments they heard the prop speaker say. Okay, so first speaker prop only has to introduce arguments. First speaker prop has to refute, and they also have to tell you what their team's 3 arguments are. Okay, when the first speakers are done, you should have a pretty good sense of the arguments that these teams are going to be putting at you throughout the course of the whole debate. When a speaker is done speaking, it's time for you to go off mute and say, that's your time. I shouldn't say when the speaker's done speaking, when time is up on the clock. So when the 5 minutes have ticked down, you're going to come off mute and say, thank you so much, that's your time, after each speech. Sometimes they don't fill their time, and that's fine. They should be trying to fill their time, but we ask you to please not let them speak longer than 5 minutes. Otherwise, the rounds will go too long. And also, it's an unfair advantage if they're able to sneak in more information than their opponents. So please, when 5 minutes has ticked down, come off mute and say, thanks so much, that's your time. Okay. Now we're moving on to the second speakers. The second speaker, we say their job is to rebuild and refute. So they might give you a new argument, but generally they should just be giving more evidence to support the arguments that their partner, the first speaker, already said. So what new evidence did they give you, or what new impacts statements did they make that made you go deeper on the arguments you already heard? And try to identify those in your notes. Also, they should continue to refute, because now they've heard the arguments of the op side, so it's time for prop to do some refuting themselves. So we ask for the second speakers to be keeping this argument ball in the air, adding more evidence, giving more refutations. So rebuild and refute. Okay. When we get to the third speakers, these are really fun speeches, the final speeches of the round. They are 1 minute shorter than the other speeches. So we go 5, 5, 5, 5, 4, 4. These are 4-minute speeches. They should not be adding any new arguments in these speeches. Absolutely not. No new arguments, no new evidence. The job of the final speaker in the round is to summarize the round for you, the judge, and to weigh it for you, the judge. So an incredible third speaker is going to make your job very easy, because they're going to remind you of what you heard, and they're going to tell you why their case was stronger overall. So they're going to say their case was all about the economy, but our case is all about saving lives, judge. And if you think that it's more important to save human life than it is for humans to become rich and happy, then our team has won this round. So that's the job of the third speaker. They're kind of reminding you of what you heard, and they're telling you why what they say is more important. So pay close attention during the third speeches. See if they can help you make your job really easy. All right. So that's the round, essentially. When the third speakers are done, you've heard those last 2 4-minute speeches, that's it. So there's only one more thing I need to tell you about the way the round looks, and something for you to know is going to happen. So we call it Parli. It's a style of debate modeled after the British Parliament. And if you've seen images of the British Parliament, it's a rowdy experience, as you can see from this image here. We want this round to feel very alive. And so we do allow the students to ask each other questions during their opponent's speeches. And those questions are called POIs, points of information. So we have rules about when POIs can be asked, but just so you know, there's nothing wrong with that. The opponent is allowed to come off mute and say POI. The person who's speaking then has to accept or deny the POI. And then a question can be asked. The question should not derail the speaker's speech. It should be short. The person who asked it shouldn't even respond. They should just come off mute, say POI. The other person will say POI accepted. And then they'll say a short 10-second question. Then their opponent will respond to it and move right back to their speech. The person who asked the question cannot continue to engage. If that's happening, you should come off mute and say, let's get back to this speech now. Thank you. Because the person who asked the POI can only just ask the question. If they have thoughts about the way it was responded to, they need to bring that up in their next speech, or their teammate can bring it up in their next speech, or save it for the third speaker to talk about. But it's not a back and forth where we engage for that and take up that person's whole time. It's only to come off mute and ask a little question. They're important because it's a good opportunity for the kids to plant strategy that they're going to use later in the round. So they're allowed. Let's talk about when they're allowed. In the first 4 speeches of the round, they can ask POIs during the middle 3 minutes of the speech. So the first minute and the last minute is called protected time. So if I'm the first speaker on the prop, I get to start my speech and speak for a whole minute with no POIs. After a minute is up, my protected time is over. I'm just going to keep speaking like normally, but my opponents know it's open season on asking POIs for the next 3 minutes. During my speech, I'm just going to get through as much as I can with possible POI interruptions. And then when I get to minute 4, my time becomes protected again. I get my last minute to speak without interruption. So in the first 4 speeches, which are all 5 minutes, first minute is protected. The next 3 minutes can have POI, and the last minute is protected again. Most of them are keeping track on their own timer to know when POIs are available to them. Discuss it with the students at the beginning of the round. Ask them if they need time signals for protected time. I recommend coming off mute and doing a clap to let them know that they can now ask POIs, and coming off mute again and doing another clap to let them know no more POI. So that's my recommendation. If the students are good on their own, keeping track of their POI, it's nice for you to not have to do any time signals. So just only if they need it. So that's POI. Now the round is over. Thank you so much to the last 2 speakers. And you're going to say, hey, that was a wonderful round of debate. You've given me a lot to think about, made my job very hard for me. I'm going to turn off my camera and fill out my ballot, and then I'm going to come right back to talk to you. At that point, you're going to turn off your camera, you're going to mute yourself, you're going to take a deep breath, and you're going to look at your notes, and you're going to decide, who do I think won this round? And then we ask you to right away go into that other tab we talked about, tabroom.com, where your ballot is, and you're going to see your ballot there looking like this. We ask you to first choose the winning school. So which team won, the prop or the op. Right there on my ballot where it says win goes to, choose winning entry. When you click that, that's a drop down menu, and you're going to see the 2 schools who were debating, and you're going to choose the school that won. To confirm you're choosing the right, we ask you to also plug in the side that they were on. It'll say AF neg, AF is prop, neg is op. So we ask you to just make sure that the school you're winning matches the side they were debating. So you're going to do that. And then on the right, where you see points, we ask you to fill in individual points for each speaker, because at the end of the day, at the awards, we announce winning teams, but we also announce the top speakers. So perhaps a team wasn't that strong, they didn't do that good in the round, but there was one phenomenal speaker who did an incredible job with their speech. We want them to still be rewarded. So we give points to each speaker, and I'll talk about those points in just a second. But just so you know, here's the moment where you fill in the points in each of these boxes. And when you're done with that, you see it circled there. It says submit ballot. So important. Please submit your ballot before you go back and talk to the kids. It's so important because sometimes the time of oral feedback with the students can influence your decision, and we don't want that. We don't want them to get a chance to add anything they forgot to say while they're talking to you in oral feedback. So please, at this moment, submit ballot. It'll ask you to confirm everything you said. Confirm, yes. And now it's time for step 7. Oral feedback. You're going to turn your camera back on, and you're going to say, all right, debaters, now it's time for me to let you know how much fun I had and just some tips for you for your next round, and I'll send you off. In the oral feedback, do not disclose the winner of the round. So please, they do that in other leagues. This is a teaching league. We ask you, do not tell them who won the round. They're going to find out eventually, but we don't want them to know that during the tournament day, because sometimes, especially in an online environment, it gives them the opportunity to feel very discouraged and maybe even just shut their computer down and be done for the day. So we don't want that to happen. We want them to leave the round feeling good. Kids are smart. They probably know if they didn't win already. They don't need to hear you say it. So we ask for you to definitely don't do that. The oral feedback is a time for you to give what we call glows and grows. So glows, you might say, hey, Travis, you were the second speaker. That was an incredible speech. You did such a great job adding new evidence to the points your opponents gave. Here was a piece of evidence that was especially compelling to me. Definitely keep that in your speech. It was really evocative and interesting to me. Other things, you can compliment the way they refute, say, you didn't let them get away with anything. You mentioned a refutation for every single argument. That's awesome if they do that. So point that out. Every single argument your opponent gives should get a refutation at some point during the round. So let them know that's good if they did that. Definitely compliment first speakers if they laid out the case in an organized way that you could follow each point. And then, yeah, tell them like what was most evocative to you. Like this one argument was super, super compelling. Like make sure you keep it in your case. Feedback for growing is something they can do to grow into the next round. Then it's good. So we recommend things like, I think that you were giving great content, but I couldn't always follow, feel free to slow down, own your points, talk to me like I'm your friend. Like you were making such great points, but I wasn't always able to latch on to them. Something like you only gave evidence for 2 of your arguments. Can you look to find a piece of evidence for that third argument? Make sure you don't let them get away with that argument. I never heard a refutation for this argument. So this is all example of great oral feedback and also great written feedback. So after that, we'll say you're dismissed to go back to your coach and get ready for your next round. Thanks for a great round of debate. So the students are gone now, and your very last step is to add your RFD or your reason for decision into your ballot in Tabroom. So you're going to see a spot in Tabroom where you can edit your feedback. Do we have a picture of it? No. So even though you submitted your scores to us, you're still able to get back into your ballot during the course of the day. So we ask you to just go right back into Tabroom, and you'll see a button that says edit feedback. Click the edit feedback, and then you can just go ahead and write a paragraph under reason for decision where you tell them very plainly, this is what decided the round for me. If you were a little bit more cagey about it in your oral feedback, this is a time to just be super blunt. Like this one decision was just, I could see this one argument, I could see the impacts of it way more. And I felt like the third speaker did a good job of telling me why the impacts were so important and would change so many people's lives. So I just ultimately had to go with the prop because of even just this one argument that really steered me in that direction. Maybe it'll be more broad. I had to go with op because overall they were just more organized the whole time. And I felt like though there was compelling arguments on the prop side, I was just always knew where I was with the op. I was able to follow them just more easily. Just be honest, with yourself, even in this moment, like, why did you choose the op over the prop? And just write it out for them like that. Here's an example of an RFD and good RFD, bad RFD. Okay, so that will be the last step. So I just want to make sure that I cover the points because I don't think I told you. And I do recommend looking over this slide on your own time. You'll get this slide from either your coach or from us, this whole PowerPoint. But this is something to look at about how to make your decision and what we look for when we talk about the arguments and the impact statements. So just something to look over if it helps you. Speaker points. So we give the students points on a scale from 25 to 30. So 25, we do not give this score out unless something happened in the round. So this is a way to indicate to us on the back end that something happened that needs to be addressed in the round. So if you give a 25, we ask you to come to the help desk when the round is over to tell us why you gave a 25, because that's something we need to know. Something offensive happened, a debater wouldn't speak, they misbehaved. So that's a reason to give a 25. These are really great kids, and we're guessing you're not going to have to give any 25s. They're wonderful and they worked hard to be here today. So we're not anticipating any 25s. I like to say every debater starts at a 27. A 27 is very average. Their argumentation is pretty good. They have 3 arguments. They're filling their time. They're helping their teammates keep the ball in the air with refuting. But yeah, overall 27, great. They're competent. They're a competent debater. If they struggled a bit more, 26, and then 28, 29, 30 is time to shine. A 28 debater, you can tell that they're a little bit better than your average bear. They're making really interesting points. They're convincing you, they're getting a little bit more strategy into play. 29 is awesome. 29 is a really good score. 29 is, they're starting to weave like a narrative for you. There's never any question of where they are or which refutation they're addressing of their opponents. They're very organized with you. You know what they're doing. You're very impressed with a 29. We expect to not see many 30s during the tournament. If you're watching a debater who you think gets a 30, you also think that they probably are going to win the whole tournament over hundreds of kids today. So 30, we kind of reserve for like, blah, 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 like jaw on the floor. A 29 is probably a better score for someone who's just extremely, extremely impressive with their argumentation and their refutation and their speaking skills. Okay. So that's the whole shebang. You wait for your assignment. On the day of the tournament, you'll know what times to be looking for those. You get the text or the email, or you just go to Tabroom and open up your ballot. You find the room that you're in. You log to it on tournaments.debate.nyc. You click into the room, greet the debaters, make the space fun, get the names, get the pronouns, get the schools. You get organized on your end while they're telling you all that. You click start round to tell us everything is going good. After you click start round, so fun, time to watch the round. First speaker proposition, 5 minutes. First speaker opposition, 5 minutes. Second speaker prop 5. Second speaker op 5. Then we hear our great rebuttal speeches. If I didn't say this already, no POIs during the third speeches. I'm afraid I didn't say that before. No, absolutely no POIs during the third speeches. They have uninterrupted time to convince you that they won the round. So last 2 speeches, 4 minutes, absolutely no POIs. Thank you so much. You've given me a lot to think about. I'm going to turn off my camera. I'm going to fill out my ballot. I'm going to give you points on a scale of 25 to 30 that we just talked about. I'm going to choose a winner. I'm going to submit my ballot. Send the ballot to us as soon as you can. I'm going to turn my camera back on. Hello, you're all wonderful. Here's some ways to improve, but overall, you're incredible and it's the best. Goodbye, goodbye. Step 8, go back in, hit edit, comment, fill out your RFD, tell them, it's also for their coaches, tell their coaches why they won or lost the round, any more feedback you want to give, and that's it. I know it's a lot of information, but the main thing really, if to go back to the original goal for the day, we want them to love the activity, make them feel like they're doing a good job, give them all that energy. Thank you so much for doing this. Your coach or us, if you're a volunteer through us, you'll be getting this PowerPoint. You'll be getting a little cheat sheet to have with you during the day that has all the stuff on just a 1-pager for you. You'll be getting this video. Please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions. I'm Sarah at debate.nyc. Yes, have great rounds. And thank you again so much.